So, ladies and gentlemen, another trivia question. What's the worst movie of the 1970s to be nominated for an Academy Award? Well, we have to think disaster movies. No, Earthquake won an Academy Award. But this movie was basically so bad that the cast of thousands of this 1978 movie couldn't take away from its inept plot and overall strange plot twist. Now, The Swarm is a 1978 American natural horror film directed and produced by the master of disaster, Irwin Allen, and based on Arthur Herzog's 74 novel. It stars an ensemble cast including Michael Caine, Catherine Ross, Richard Widmark, Richard Chamberlain, Olivia de Havilland, Ben Johnson, Lee Grant, Jose Ferrer, Patty Duke, Slim Pickens, Bradford Dillman, Henry Fonda, and Fred McMurray in his final film role. It follows a scientist and a military task force who try to prevent a large swarm of killer bees from invading Texas. Now, original release was 2 hours, but there's a almost 3-hour cut out there that's available on home video. The film received overwhelmingly negative reviews from critics and was a box office non-hit. Although it cost $11 million to make, it only got back about $8 million. It has been considered to be one of the worst films ever made. I've watched it, and I've seen worse, but I rarely seen movies so egotistical. Now, screenplay by our old pal Sterling Silliphant, Paul Zastupinovich was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Costume Design. Now, in South Texas, a top security U.S. Air Force ICBM command bunker is invaded and neutralized by an unknown force. An Air Force unit led by Major Baker, played by Bradford Dillman, investigates and comes across an unauthorized scientist at the secured base, Dr. Bradford Crane, played by Michael Caine, who was tracking a large swarm of killer bees when he attacked the Air Force bunker. General Slater, played by Richard Widmark, orders 2 helicopters to check the area, whereupon the helicopter is destroyed by a swarm of bees. Has to be seen to be believed. Crane insists that Slater at the base was attacked by the same African killer bees that destroyed the helicopters. Now, Catherine Ross, one of the base's doctors, supports Crane's story. Meanwhile, in the nearby countryside, the Durant family is attacked by the swarm of the bees. The mother and father die from the bee stings, and Paul, their son, escapes in a Mustang. Well, whatever works. Although he's stung, Paul manages to make it into town and crashes into Marysville Town Square, where the citizens are preparing for the annual Flower Festival. Evil pollination to come. The boy is brought into the hands of military personnel, where he hallucinates a vision of giant bees attacking him due to the after effects of the bee sting. Wheelchair-bound Dr. Walter Krim, played by Henry Fonda, confirms to Crane that the very war he had feared for a long time has started against the bees. At the gates of the base, Slater confronts angry county engineer Jed Hawkins, played by Slim Pickens, who demands to see the dead body of his son, an airman in the bunker who was killed by the bees. Hawkins takes the body bag and departs, leaving the Ontario watching crowd silent over the loss. Slater suggests airdropping poison on a swarm, but Crane considers the ecological possibilities of the situation, as the poison will wipe out plant growth for a decade or more. Now, recovering from his early bee attack, Paul and his friends search for the hive to firebomb it in revenge for his family, which results only in angering the bees, who make their way to Marysville, where they kill hundreds, including some children at the local school. Now, in New Brunswick, this was kind of scary because there's a Marysville in New Brunswick, but I don't think the bees would attack that beautiful community. Now, Crane and Helena take shelter at a local diner with pregnant cafe waitress Rita. Reporter Ann McGregor, played by Lee Grant, watches from the safety of her news van, hoping to get some exciting footage about the siege. After this most recent attack, in fear of another one, Slater suggests evacuating many of the townsfolk to a train. However, the bees attack the train, causing the locomotive to derail over a cliff, killing everyone aboard, including a love triangle made up of schoolteacher Maureen Schuster, retiree Felix Austin, and town mayor and drugstore owner Clarence Tuttle. Now, Rita tries to board the ill-fated train, but is saved at the last minute by going into labor and is confined to the hospital. She gives birth to her child while falling in love with the doctor in the process. But Paul suffers a relapse from the effects of being stung earlier and later dies, devastating Helena and sending her into a rage about why the children have to die. The savage swarm heads for Houston, and Crane decides to drop eco-friendly poison petals on them, hoping that the swarm senses will harm them and stay away from the city. Unfortunately, the plan fails. Dr. Krim self-injects and injects an experimental bee venom antidote, planning to track the results, but the trial proves fatal and he dies. Meanwhile, nuclear power plant manager Dr. Andrews, Jose Ferrer, is convinced that his plant can withstand the attack of the bees, ignoring the warnings of Dr. Hubbard, played by Richard Chamberlain, a massive cameo. However, the bees invade the plant, causing a nuclear explosion, killing Andrews and Hubbard, destroying the plant, and wiping out a nearby town. Again, I would like to see the honeypot on this one. Meanwhile, in Houston, Crane analyzes the tapes from the bee invasion and comes to the conclusion that at least that the test of the alarm system at the ICBM bunker attracted a swarm into the base. The bees attacked Houston, resulting in the deaths of Major Baker and Dr. Newman, one of Crane's associates. Slater sacrificed himself to save Crane and Helena from the bees. Helicopters playing the alarm sound from the ICBM bunker over loudspeakers that lure the bees out to sea, where they douse the water with oil and set the swarm ablaze. Helena wonders if their victory was just temporary. Crane responds that he does not know, but decides that if we use our time wisely, the world just might survive. And other key actors, Alejandro Rey was in it, and of course, the great Cameron Mitchell, very underrated actor. Now, the film was announced in '74 at the height of disaster movie craze. It was part of a $38 million worth of projects Allen had lined up, others including The Day the World Ended, a project which was retitled and released in 1980 as the When Time Ran Out, and the script again was written by Silliphant, who had written A Towering Inferno for Allen. He said in December '74 that Allen hoped to start filming in April of '75. Production was delayed in part because Allen decided to leave Fox for Warner Brothers. Estimates of the number of bees used in the production range between 15 million and 22 million, including 800,000 bees with their stingers removed to enable the cast to work safely with them. So who was the bee wrangler on this? Can you imagine getting paid to take a stinging arse out of bees? Anyway, about 100 people were employed in the production to care for and transport the bees during the film shoot. Olivia de Havilland, our great Oscar winner, was stung by a bee during filming, and Fred MacMurray retired from acting after completing this film. Unfortunately, that's how it ended. The film received overwhelmingly negative reviews from critics. It has a score of 9% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 22 reviews with an average rating of 3.9 out of 10. Now, it was one of two disaster films, the other being Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, directed solely by the master of disaster Allen, who had experience directing several films and made episodes of his TV shows, and both featured Michael Caine in the leading role. The film is listed in the Golden Raspberry Award founder John G.B. Wilson's book, The Official Razzie Movie Guide, as one of the 100 most enjoyable bad movies ever made, where Wilson states that under Allen's unsubtle direction, despite the enormous production budget, the swarm turned the tale of invasion of killer bees in the ultimate bee movie. Now, Vincent Canby, New York Times, called the film nothing less than the ultimate epitome of yesterday's bee movie. Gene Siskel gave it a 1.5 stars out of 4 and wrote that it's surprisingly flaccid in these trills, explaining in these days of Star Wars, it takes more than a fleet of helicopters and a flameout on the Gulf of Mexico to convince audience that are being dazzled. Now, Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote the film was fun in its primitive way, adding that one wishes if it were silent, as word-of-the-mill epics of the 20s it closely resembles. Now, the Sunday Times described The Swarm as simply the worst film ever made, while Time Out magazine called The Swarm a risibly inadequate disaster movie. Now, the film grossed $5.168 million in the opening weekend for more than 1,200 theaters and earned Warner Brothers rentals in Canada of $7.7 million based on a $13 million budget. Now, the musical score was positive. It was created by Jerry Goldsmith. Now, Goldsmith was one of the best ever. Again, Goldsmith's score used French horns and comparable instruments, which are intended to produce sound effects, intended to resemble the sound of an apiary mega swarm. The score was originally released on an LP and cassette on Warner Brothers at 36 minutes in '78 at the same time as the film's release. An expanded remastered score was released in 2002 in a limited edition by Prometheus Records, contained over 40 minutes of previously unreleased material. In 2020, La La Land Records issued a 2-CD set with a complete score and a '78 soundtrack album. Now, film was originally released in theaters at 116 minutes, but it was released on Laserdisc in '92. It was extended to 156 minutes, with additional scenes. This extended version also included all DVD releases worldwide, a 22-minute documentary called Inside the Swarm, and the original theatrical trailer. First released by DVD by Warner on August 6, 2002, it was re-reissued in 2016 under a Warner Archive Collection sublabel. The film was released on Blu-ray on September 25, 2018, again through Warner Archive. Like the previous DVD releases, it contains a 156-minute extended version, the original trailer, and a 22-minute documentary. In the US, the film was given a PG rating by the AMPAA, and the UK, the film was released with an A certificate. And in the BBFC rated the extended version 12. Now, the ending credits to the film are very bizarre as well, including a disclaimer. The African killer bee portrayed in this film bears absolutely no relationship to the industrious, hardworking American honeybee, to which we are indebted for pollinating vital crops that feed our nation. According to an article in the HR published on February 24, 1978, the American Bee Association considering taking legal action against the film's producers for defaming the Western honeybee, but whether the lawsuit was ever filed or not is unknown. Now, how it worked back in the day as well, there was a whole bunch of rumors that killer bees would have come north. I don't know if it started with the movie or, those old conspiracies you would read in the National Enquirer or Worldwide Weekly News or whatever it was called. But the only disaster from killer bees would be wasting 2 hours of your time watching this movie. And a lot of people gave this movie a chance in first weekend. Did not too bad, but word of mouth, or what do you call it, wasn't a honey of a movie. Now, I know there's people of a certain generation love Earthquake, love the Poseidon Adventure, love the Towering Inferno, but I think by the mid-1970s, the disaster movies had ran its course. And don't forget, you were running out of celebrities. There was also that, that Comet, the movie called Comet with Natalie Wood and Sean Connery, that really, I think it was called Comet, yeah, that really pissed a lot of people off. All their favorite actors and actresses were trying out weird relationships, bad accents, but to see, Oscar winners and Emmy winners and all these people, they were doing it for the money, but seeing Michael Caine and Catherine Ross as a male-female duo. I know Catherine Ross had great success in The Graduate and, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. To see her kind of on the tail end of her monetary career, although she's a great actress. But Michael Caine, typical British actor, to appear in anything. So for a British actor to appear in this movie makes a lot of sense because the Brits are not scared to take shitty parts. Look at the current group of British actors who take all the parts that are offered to them. Some are bombs and some are otherwise. But I give this movie 1 star out of 4 for the basic audacity, thinking that people would take this movie seriously. Now, here's the question. There's no mention of weather. Are the bees attacking in the spring or in the summer? There's no way bees would be able to attack Canada. Couldn't he just, ask Canada for a cold front? Get a satellite and, hit the satellite, changes the weather to cold and freezes everybody. Now, that would be a good plot. Using Canadian weather satellites run by the Chinese. How the Americans like to think all Canadians are communists, which is just foolishness. We played them in hockey for that many years. Most Americans don't like hockey. And by the way, that's a joke of the week when Canadians call communists after what happened in 72 and 74. Anyway, neither here nor there. Daniel Bowden can talk to it better about that. Our good pal of the channel. Anyway, it's not a good movie, but if you want something to laugh at, just like Maximum Overdrive, just like the bad horror movies in Canada, the clown murders, and all that. Again, terrible movie. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our vintage podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget, if you see a bee coming, just shut the window. Have a good one. Bye.